Good afternoon. It is time once again for another episode of Never Punt, Never Parlay. I'm your host, Parker Fleming, and I have alongside me, as I will from now until the end of the season, every Tuesday, Douglas Farmer. Douglas, how are you today?
I am doing very well. I'm not going to get to the item. We're not going to talk about it until we talk about it later. Much to your chagrin, we have to talk about it at some point today, Parker. But I'm wearing orange today, not just for Halloween. I want that on the record. I'm wearing it for that other reason that we didn't talk about last week, but we have to talk about today. I want to get that in your head out of the gates. We have to talk about it.
Yeah, I think we do, and I'm okay with it. I'm feeling a little bit better, and I'm feeling a little less cosmologically, existentially significant, and so perhaps talking about it won't, in fact, impact the outcome and ruin my life. We are, of course, part of the Hammer network of content. We are on the Hit the Books HQ YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed there. Make sure you like this video for us. And if you get to that channel, you get us every Tuesday. You get Kanish and Powers a couple days a week as well. A bunch of good content on this channel. So make sure you do that. If you're here today, hop in the chat with the comments. Would love to see what you're betting, what you like, how your weekend went, and figure out just what you're looking forward to this weekend as well. But we've got a good show today. We're going to do some recaps. We're going to get into thanks to some organization and motivation by Douglas. We're going to get into some recap of our futures to just kind of check in on how those are, and looking at the sheet. I don't remember half of them, so we'll see what dumb August Parker thought about that. July Parker, we've been doing this since July, and see all of those things. So without further ado, let's talk about our week last week. Douglas, 3-3 again. Look, not bad. 33-24 to date. The Utah pick for me wasn't a good one. Thought they were going to be able to dictate the pace of play, and let me tell you, friend, they did not dictate the pace of play at all. So big, giant, fat L on Utah for me last week. Not ideal, but we live to bet another day.
Did you learn anything from that game except Utah is worn out? Like, I didn't come away with I'm not writing Utah off any more than I already had. I'm not praising Oregon. Like, Utah was just worn to pieces, right?
Well, I think that's kind of by design with Oregon. Oregon just kind of leaned on him and said, like, hey, we know what you think you can do on offense. We're not going to let you do that. We're going to be okay with Bryson Barnes trying to move the ball. Honestly, the biggest thing for me was, like, how the heck did USC not know how to just stifle them, how to just sit back and say, Parker, we're not going to let you do what you want to do.
Utah did things to USC that it hadn't put on film all year, except for the previous game and that player's limited usage. I mean, how is USC ever supposed to anticipate these newfangled play design? We don't need to get on that tangent.
Yeah, it's a whole other mess there. But that one was one where, I don't know that I did lose. You took a loss on MACtion there. Ohio just decided not to play football this weekend. I don't know if there's anything else to say about that one.
And that was such a lot. Well, what to say is it's going to cost me on the futures market if we don't come back on Miami, Ohio losing at some point. Because Ohio, you had the chance there to really secure the East. And credit to Chuck Martin, credit to the Red Hawks. They took it to them. It was very impressive. But Ohio no-showed. So that was very frustrating for me. I was redeemed at the end of the night. Arizona, you like to start the week well and you like to end the week well for obvious psychological reasons that shouldn't have as much impact as they do. Arizona beating Oregon State late felt very good. I teased that money line on the show last week. That was a little bit of validation for me. In fact, Parker, this second week in a row, all three of our wins were real easy. We cleared the spread in our 3 wins by more than 10 points on those spreads. The 3 losses were 21 points worse than those spreads.
A lot of that is the Utah loss, though. I think that probably drags us down.
And Ohio, it wasn't. Ohio was just as bad as Utah against the spread.
Yeah, the Ohio one was pretty bad as well. Looking at some other things we're updating as well. We're one-on-one on beer bets because I went the opposite direction on oh my gosh, why am I blanking? West Virginia against UCF. Although that game I think was a little bit closer than it looked like. UCF just threw some untimely touchdowns, but West Virginia certainly made a bad UCF team look like a bad UCF team at the very least. And so took a beer bet, but not a record win on that one, which is odd. But I gave that out other places, so I got credit as well later on in the week too. And so we're 1-1 on beer bets so far. My only loss being, of course, trusting in Grant Wells to not throw an interception. And would have happened if they hadn't brought him back in the game, but for some reason they brought him back in the game. But the last one that's outstanding, I'm sure we'll make another one in the next couple of weeks, is UTEP suddenly tied with Louisiana Tech, getting a little bit uncomfortable in those CUSA standings. I still have the head-to-head with Louisiana Tech having that win over UTEP, but the schedules are not breaking in my favor here from that head-to-head to count. UTEP has Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, and Liberty. I think one of those is winnable for UTEP, maybe. But then, of course, I don't know that we're going to get another win for Louisiana Tech. Liberty, Sam Houston, Jacksonville State. 1 and 2 would be nice there, but I'm not sure. So getting a little spicy in the Conference USA race there for I guess 4th at this point is what we're racing for.
It's going to be real, the embodiment of some of the absurdities things we do here. If I win that beer bet, because UTEP just gets one more win, having lost the head-to-head, after I win the Grant Wells beer bet in what sure looks like to be his last action of the season. So for me to really just slide those
just
two
one giant last middle finger to me, and then he didn't play for the rest of the season.
His last 29 career games, Grant Wells has thrown 29 interceptions, and that stat is still true.
Still true. Also, what's interesting about this is, so you've got UTEP has Western Kentucky this weekend, then they go bye Middle Tennessee, Liberty. Louisiana Tech has used their bye on Thanksgiving, so we're actually going to know the outcome, or at least know what we need to happen in Liberty versus UTEP if we need a miracle or not, one way or the other.
Maybe I wore orange today for 3 reasons. Can I go in and change this live?
The third reason there, because this is so we will know November 18th is when Louisiana Tech's regular season ends there. So we will certainly know the results of the beer bet of that beer bet by then.
We should move forward to some of the more notable games last week, such as Oklahoma. If you want to beat Kansas, you can't shoot yourself in the foot that badly. The old Parker Fleming, did you really get beat that bad chart? Oklahoma was as far to the left as you can get without being named Clemson, and you still lost. That was Oklahoma's own fault. Kansas made them pay. Credit to Kansas for capitalizing, but it was Oklahoma's own fault.
Yep, and Lance Leipold did not prepare his team to go down and not score there at the end and run the clock off, and they gave the ball back to Dillon Gabriel. Kansas tried to give the game to Oklahoma, and Oklahoma still could not take it. I think, again, Oklahoma just came out flat, got stuck in a bad situation. That pick 6 on the first drive really set the tone, and then it gets weird with the delay. But I think it's important to realize that this is why I still had Texas in front of Oklahoma. Is like Oklahoma is capable of this, of course, and head to head, I'm not going to rank Kansas above Oklahoma now. You got to think about context in other games, and so Oklahoma had a nice run to start the season here, but we'll see if they can make it to the rematch. So the schedule is certainly okay for them.
You're not going to rank Kansas in front of Oklahoma. It's like you didn't even watch the football game. Gosh.
I actually am very proud of this. I had to go get an oil change, so the line was pretty long. I watched most of that game in my car with a Diet Coke on my phone right there, waiting for my oil to get changed. So it's pretty great.
We'll skip over me wondering why you didn't change your own oil and instead point out that Louisville shut out Duke. Much like that Utah loss, the only real takeaway I have here is that Riley Leonard was still not fully healthy. Duke's backup quarterback was actually unavailable, so they had no choice but to play a hampered Riley Leonard. And that became almost like a gentleman's under of just, we're going to pack this up. We're going to go home 23-0. You're sitting real pretty with that Louisville future. It was a flyer to 13-1. Do you have any other interest in an ACC championship game of Florida State Louisville, or is that kind of just a non-intriguing game aside from that future?
I mean, I'd go bet Florida State pretty much whatever that number was, I think. Yeah. I also am probably like 2 weeks late for an exacta of Florida State. Like, I got to think about the market. But like, if I was smart, what I would have done at the beginning of the season was also like gone all in on Florida State beats Louisville as an exacta result for the ACC championship, if I could have found it. And then I would have everything just kind of lined up perfectly for me.
I don't know that those exactas are that widely available, but I would have liked that thought, especially if 2 weeks ago, per se, you had done Florida State over Duke, Florida State over Louisville, Florida State over North Carolina, because all of those would be a plus money, and you would be well ahead combined with this 13-1 ticket.
but still like Louisville, still feel vindicated on that Louisville play. Because again, there's sometimes you're just like, dude, the schedule lines up here, and then the schedule lined up here for Louisville. Duke, Elko's still got it cooking. We need to know what happens after it. Maybe he's going to take Michigan State, Jeff. I have no idea, but we need to know what's going to happen with Elko after a quarterback. I don't think this year is a referendum on that, but they do need to recruit another guy and be able to think about the future after Riley Leonard. Certainly long-term horizon for that program at Duke. Kind of disappointing to get one of these years, though, where he's hurt and it just kind of isn't working. Douglas, we need to have a moment of silence just very briefly for Brian Ferencz. The inevitable became the real, and he will no longer be returning.
Whoa. You're going to call this inevitable. The item that you were out here calling a psyop, saying that it wouldn't matter in the end, you're going to go ahead and say it was inevitable? I think you can't have it both ways there, Parker.
One, I can have it as many ways as I like. Two, I think there were paths. And I think one of my paths was Kirk wants to retire, and so he's going to let them do all this thing, and then he's going to say F it and retire. Still totally on the table. Another one is it's really hard to fire your kid. It's really hard to go tell your wife that your grandkids are moving to Tampa. And so you got to have it out. And so Kirk was like, let me figure this out. And it could be in between there as well. Certainly don't want to necessarily laugh at someone losing their job, but Brian Ferencz clearly was a family hire who was underperforming, and it is funny that it took this long for them to go another direction. It'd be interested to see what they do. Here's my guess. Can I give a hot take here that is not a betting prediction? Iowa is going to hire some low-level NFL staffer no one's heard of. That's who's going to be the hire.
Maybe it was you I saw saying this on Twitter late last night. Maybe you were in a conversation. Maybe it was somebody else. This is not the first time I'm hearing this thought. It's the Ferentzes are better connected in the NFL than people realize. And so there are, and to my understanding, the offense is not that far away from the Shanahan offense that is so successful in the NFL. So the thought here is go get somebody who
was that Space Cowboy. Maybe is the one who was saying it. I don't remember. I want to give somebody credit.
That sounds that would be his ilk. That would be his version of thinking. And so the thought process is go get an offensive line coach or even a tight ends coach who's well-versed in that system and have a better offense than the one that has averaged 19.5 points through the last 8 games. Our hope here at Never Punt, Never Parlay will simply be that our Hawkeye-colored logo will be more true of Iowa's offense next year, and they will punt less often. Now, we've spent far too much time on Iowa. One more note about Iowa. Last week, I was wrong about something. I forgot that Penn State beat Iowa because all the Iowa losses blend together. All the Iowa wins blend together. As a result of forgetting that, I misspoke about my Wisconsin Big Ten West future. It is alive. It is well. I just need Iowa to lose one more game than Wisconsin does, and that comes home. I wanted to get that correction on the air here before we move forward. It is curious looking at those Big Ten odds. I can't find Big Ten West odds right now, but I can find Big Ten odds. Wisconsin is at 16-1. Iowa's at 18-1. Nebraska, which you've been interested in, is 40-1. All those are DraftKings. I'm just using them for context right now. So Wisconsin has a little bit of an edge on Iowa. If you're looking at those, it's basically who's going to go lose in the Big Ten championship.
Can we do a little game theory here as well, just in terms of who's left in Wisconsin and Nebraska? How does Nebraska win the West is what I want to know. So I'm looking at Iowa's schedule. Iowa does play Nebraska straight up. So Nebraska needs to beat Iowa.
And that will be Black Friday, that noon Eastern kick. It's one of those weird little traditions I've started. The last few years, I've really enjoyed that game every year.
Yeah, it'll be weird. It'll be fun. Okay, no, Nebraska is in the driver's seat. They play Wisconsin, and then they play Iowa. Nebraska needs to win out. That's it. That's all. Do they? Because they have one. No, they lost to. Am I going insane?
Going is the questionable word there. What have I? Folks, we did not rehearse the Big Ten football standings because I didn't expect to spend this much time on it.
I'm looking at Wisconsin's schedule, thinking it's Nebraska, and seeing Iowa there, and I thought I was having a stroke. I saw the Iowa logo and a loss, and I thought, my God, wait, they played them already, but they didn't play them. Nebraska just needs to win. I just need Nebraska to win. That's going to take care of business for me. We can have a mutual interest maybe on that Black Friday if Nebraska doesn't beat Wisconsin, that Nebraska does beat Iowa, because that's going to help your future as well and make me feel a little less bad about losing that flyer on Nebraska to the Big Ten West.
The other futures note before we talk about some win totals, the other futures note I wanted to point out, and this is a little bit me patting myself on the back, but a little bit our process back in August was sound. When I looked at the Sun Belt, I saw two contenders and two teams who I liked as flyers because of the way the schedule set up. One of those flyers, Georgia Southern, is coming home, and one of those contenders, Troy, is coming home. Right now, those are the two in the driver's seat, and it's. I think I wasn't too thorough on looking, but I think that's going to be our only futures play where one of us has both teams in the conference championship.
Yeah, that'll be fun to have that there. I like that. Okay, why don't you? Because we got to get some games here too. Why don't you walk us through the futures? You have done this whole spreadsheet. You've kept track of this. You've color coded it. I love color coding. I also love, before you get into it, you made blue good and red bad, which is in accordance with my stat preview graphic. So speaking to my heart here, walk us through our futures and kind of where we sit in week 10. It's week 10. Good Lord.
Well, I'm going to knock you down a peg. Blue is good because green doesn't show up real well in the font on the screen. That is the reason blue is good. Parker, you to date are 2-1 in your win totals. Your one loss was Northwestern under 3. You know, that really felt like a surefire thing when you made it. Credit to them for putting together a redeemable season. While you might be winning,
great. Parker's 2-1. Cool.
Okay, you are trending badly. You have 3 and 6 pretty well set on top of that 2-1. Those are not confirmed. They are not certain, but you would need Auburn to beat Alabama and Arkansas to get that over 7. You would need things like Arizona to lose every game the rest of the season to get that under 5. So you are trending towards 6 and 8 with a likely flyer loss in Florida Atlantic as well. 6 and 8, not terrible, not great. And then there's me. I'm only 1-0 so far. Middle Tennessee State is guaranteed to come in under 6.5 wins, and I got that at plus money, so we like that. And I've got 10 and 3 trending pretty well, and 11-6 total. Things like Stanford beating Cal would cost me, which would be infuriating. Wisconsin has to win out in order for me to get the over 8.5. And yes, it's Indiana, Northwestern, Nebraska, Minnesota, but you have to assume they lose one of those, just logically speaking. So I've got that as trending badly, part of my 11-6. We both are hoping, this is maybe the one to note most, that North Carolina will lose 2 of Duke, Clemson, and North Carolina State. If they lose 2 of those, or under 8.5 comes home.
I can't believe that's still in play. I think that's the first text message I sent on Sunday morning. It was like to you, say like,
yeah, no, it was Saturday night.
Saturday night. It's like North Carolina's still in play. Holy cow! And they got kicked in the nuts. I mean, just absolute embarrassing. Not like I'm not saying like they should be embarrassed. I'm just being like, oh, a shameful loss. Maybe there's some wind out of their sails. So I hate that I have to be the villain and root for that. But I was sitting there having a beer on Saturday, looking at this, twirling my mustache and going, there's the Gene Chizik I know and love. I found him, damn it.
No, not former Auburn national title winning head coach Gene Chizik. It can't be.
National title, national champion.
So lumping all of those together, we are trending towards 17 and 14, but North Carolina falling apart would quickly jump us to 19 and 12. You carried us last week to 3 and 3. I am more than happy to carry some of the load on our season-long win total futures plays and have us come out in the black. That's all we really strive for here, for process and profits. Both of them matter, and in that instance, our variety helps the process.
Yeah, I like that a whole lot. Specialization, Adam Smith, man, I like it. Comparative advantage, all that econ stuff. Yeah, let's talk about some games. 19, that's 20 right there. That's almost 20 for our kind of recap. So that's a nice split on the show. We got a couple big ones today, a couple big ones, and then a couple big ones we've got plays about as well. So I like this. You have a nice mix of games here. Let's go ahead and talk about the first one. Kansas State travels to Texas. Texas, a 4-point favorite. The total is 51, widely available. Interesting game here. Fate of the Big 12 in the balance. The fate of Texas to the playoff. That's in the balance. A lot is riding on this game for Texas, and you've got to think that with quarterback Quinn Ewers out, they're extremely happy that this game is in Austin, not Manhattan.
Extremely happy is probably putting it lightly, but the problem is still, you know exactly what I'm going to say. Texas doesn't believe in scoring in the red zone. Texas has converted 48% of its red zone possessions this year into touchdowns, which ranks 120th in the country. And it's going up against a perfectly reasonable red zone defense. And by perfectly reasonable, I mean the number 3 red zone defense in touchdowns allowed inside the 20-yard line at 30%. That is going to be all I watch in this game. You heard me talk about it back in the Oklahoma instance. And what did Texas do against Oklahoma, Parker? I can't quite remember. That's right. They squandered scoring opportunity after scoring opportunity after scoring opportunity, and that was with Quinn Ewers. This could backfire on Texas all over again. I don't remember if it was you or our friend Dano who I said after that Texas game, or I think it was a DM with Kyle Hunter, that Texas's inability in the red zone is going to cost it again this season, and this looks like it could be that game. Kansas State is an underdog, but that you squandered one red zone opportunity, and that's that 4-point spread.
Yeah, and Kansas State really looks like they've got an identity here. Producer Jacob just put the odds up. If you can see a 4.5, I'd be way more interested in a 4. I think a 4.5 is pretty interesting there, depending on the juice for Kansas State there. But what's interesting about Kansas State and what I'm interested to see with them at Texas, I think their offensive line is one of the only ones in the country that can really go pound for pound with Texas's defense. But last year, Kansas State created a lot more yards before contact with Deuce Vaughn. This year, they're creating a lot more yards after contact with Giddens and Ward there. So a kind of a different but similar Kansas State physicality this year with the yards after contact. Really, really interesting to see. I like that one. I'm probably going to have some pizza money on Kansas State by the end of the week if we're being honest here, looking at all of that. So that's a big one. We've got another big one. I really wish we weren't going to talk about this one, but I think we have to at this point. We were being a little bit coy. I'm sure you understood it last week. Douglas is wearing orange for it. My beard is orange my entire life just for this exact reason right here. That Oklahoma State.
What a long play. What a 30-year long play. I'm going to go.
That Oklahoma State Big 12 flyer. What was that? Plus 18?
I think the Oklahoma State, that was 65, Parker. That was 65-1. That was 65-1 when we got that at circa, if my memory serves correctly. Yeah, we're sitting on a real healthy Oklahoma State. It was a flyer for both of us. It was us recognizing value as we shopped all around all summer. And you know what? Let's just go ahead and remind folks right now, the easiest way to improve as a sports bettor is to use multiple sports books and always get the best odds. When we took Oklahoma State, some books had it as low as 30 or 35-1. We got 65-1 because we shopped around. BetStamp compares odds across every sports book for games, futures, player props. Save time and money by checking BetStamp before you bet. Download the app. Look at betstamp.app/hitthebooks to remind folks of who sent you, make us look a little bit better for the people in charge. And then you often hear us. Right now I'm referencing it with Circa where we got those odds. In a little bit, when we get to this week's games, we're going to mention specific books that have the best odds. That's when you want to go scan that QR code in the corner there, right there. And you can then get to those books as quick as possible, create an account, and get those odds while they're still available. Use betstamp.app/hitthebooks, link in the description, link in the show notes, link wherever. And these are the ways you make easy money gambling. There is no easy money in gambling. I should rephrase it, but it's a little bit easier if you know you're getting the best odds. Like Oklahoma State, 65-1 to win the Big 12. Now, 6-point underdogs this weekend. It's a little bit questionable, a little bit edgy. Oklahoma State, a home dog. How do you feel, Parker?
I'm honestly a little bit nervous. I mean, Ollie Gordon can run over anybody right now. I don't know what they were doing in the first couple of games this season, but he is averaging like 195 yards a game in Big 12 play. Really, really impressive effort. Really, really nice rebound. I've tweeted this multiple times. This is going to be Mike Gundy's funniest 9-3 season of all time.
Now, is that possibly why they were messing around? He knew they didn't have a title team. Could Mike Gundy have looked at September and thought, okay, let's go be competitive in the Big 12. Let's build up into this season. That's classic Big 12 in general, not just Mike Gundy, of overlooking some things to become a wrecker in conference play.
Yeah, I can't imagine that losing 33 to whatever it was against South Alabama was in the cards. But I think there definitely was we know what we're focusing on this year. And they had some new offensive linemen. They had some new coaches. They're figuring all that out. So interesting overall to see this kind of bounce back. I don't think that I'm interested in adding any additional burden to Oklahoma State here this weekend, especially because that number is not going past 7. I don't think. I think it's going to stay in at 6.5. this week. So I'm going to be content to root for my title interests, and I don't think I'm going to put money on it. It is hard because in the series history, we know that a couple things can happen in Bedlam. Oklahoma can win by a little bit, or Oklahoma can win by a lot. So hard for me to bet Oklahoma State in this spot.
Anything can happen at Bedlam.
Moving on, we've got another one that's similar. I mean, honestly, pound for pound, this is a pretty beefy week. We've got one, Douglas, that puts you and I diametrically opposed, head to head, the big showdown. LSU at Alabama. Bama -3 with a 60.5 total. That's CBS Saturday night. That's college football. Why we're diametrically opposed here, we both need this one. I've got Bama to win the SEC at +300. You've got LSU to win the West at +215. This is a de facto elimination game.
Oh, this is. I mean, I have no faith in Texas A&M. This is for the division, much like Iowa, Wisconsin seemed to be for the Big Ten West a few weeks ago. I look at this game and I think back to 2 weeks ago, Tennessee. We talked about it last week. If Tennessee had just gotten one more on the board, it really felt like Alabama was in too much of a hole. All credit deserved to the most underrated coach in America. I have to think the LSU offense and Jaden Daniels can just get that one more on a board and dig too much of a hole for the dink and what do you call it? The dink and dump? No,
dink and bomb.
The dink and bomb offense. I think that Jalen Milroe can keep up with Jaden Daniels.
The Missouri game is super interesting in terms of what the script of this can go like, because I think LSU wants to turn this into track meet, and LSU has shown, hey, we can go get that extra score. Hey, we are dimensional enough to counterpunch. Alabama wants 9-6 again. Like they want this to be an absolute mess. Nick Saban probably doing a little rain dance, asking for 5 or 6 inches during the game just to muck things up and slow LSU down a little bit. But can LSU turn into a track meet? That's not a known. I don't think that's a given overall, given what we've seen out of them, and especially because of their defense. I wonder if Alabama can't try to lean a little bit on, hey, we're not going to worry about these explosive plays. We're just going to try to get chunk plays. Alabama 51st in offensive success rate. LSU's defense 92nd in success rate allowed.
You've broken my brain by suggesting Nick Saban, Brian Kelly 9-6. I want to say this measured. If this game were of the 9-6 variety, the Brian Kelly sideline camera, it's been a meme. It hasn't actually been reality for about 10 years. People took one photo and it became a meme. It would become present reality again on Saturday night. If this was 9-6, that would be the must-watch camera angle. I cannot imagine how that would look. It would. Oh my goodness! You have broken my brain with that suggestion.
This would probably be one of the best defensive performances in recent college football history, to hold this LSU offense full strength to 6 points.
And some of it, if we're going to go down this rabbit hole, I mean, Tommy Rees at Notre Dame last year, remember the Ohio State opener, Tommy Rees showed a complete buy-in on complementary football, of slowing the game down, of eating up the clock on offense. So some of it would be that. Alabama would try to navy this up and get 7 or 8 possessions per team. It would be a coaching and defensive clinic.
Yeah. That's what I really want to see. Is I'm gonna again content to root for my interests long term here. Watch this one. Hope for some fun. Douglas, we're 29 minutes into this gosh dang podcast. Let's give the people what they want. Let's toss out. Let's get a little bit of some plays in here. Douglas, you're going to start us with the Big 12.
I am not going to start us. You're going to start us because you have a game kicking off in a few hours.
Tonight,
you have a pick coming up.
You need this right now. I'll make this quick. Go get Buffalo plus 15.5 playing at Toledo tonight. Going to be very gross. We've got some flurries at 6 o'clock right before the game. You're giving me a double-digit underdog on the first night of Maction. I love it. I want that absolutely. I think that's a game that, again, just my numbers like this by Toledo by about 9 or 10, but not by this much, this 15.5 number. Right now I've got, Toledo is due for some are always good for some special teams mistakes. They're 50th in EPA per play margin, but that defense is 74th, moving backwards. And Buffalo's defense, don't look now, weighted the last couple of weeks of the season, they're 65th in defensive efficiency. I think they could muck this game up, make things a little bit confusing. Let's go with the Buffalo tonight to make Maction spicy. Not going to win outright, but I think they're going to keep this thing interesting.
Now let's reiterate, because that's coming up so quickly. That's at 7:30 Eastern. We're within 3 hours of it. That was plus 15.5. Best odds available were Bet River /Sugar House. Sounds to me, Parker, like you would be fine all the way down to 14.
Yeah, I think if it passes 14, maybe just watch. But if you can go get that, yep, I like that.
All right, then I will take us to Saturday. I will take us to some Power 5 football that used to be Group of 5 football, and I'm going to go back to the well that burned me last week. It's not the first time I've done that this year, and it didn't go well for me before, but here we are backing Central Florida. I know, on a 5-game losing streak, and here I still am buying lower than last week. But the thing is, I've been fading Cincinnati all year. Parker's been fading Cincinnati since February, and it's been paying off. Sure, Cincinnati has a decent run defense, ranks number 46 in raw EPA per rush, but Ollie Gordon just broke them. Oklahoma State just rushed for more than 300 yards, more than 8 yards per carry in that 45-13 route. I will take the team that desperately needs a win, Central Florida, against the team that is broken and was only decent against the run in the first place. Central Florida likes to run. I'm getting this as low as 3.5 right now, neg 112 at DraftKings, and I'm going to cook with that, and I'm going to enjoy it. That is how Central Florida is going to break this 5-game losing streak just a week later than I would have liked them to.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. They did really kind of, again, I think I mentioned that game was a little bit closer to the West Virginia game than the score indicated last week. Certainly defensible here. A fading Cincinnati, not bad strategy. I also love that UCF gets another new Big 12 school right after this game. If it was the Baylor game again, I would be absolutely terrified of this. But I like this. I'm fading Cincinnati, fully into it there. UCF is a fun pick here. I'll probably end up backing you by the end of the week here. I'll go and take another one that I'm not going to overthink. I like Nebraska. I think they're getting better. I like Michigan State, or I don't like Michigan State. They're not getting better. Ever since Nebraska switched over to Harburg and said, gosh, dang it, we're just going to run the football. That's all we can do. They're 129th in rush rate over expected. But even with all that volume, they're 44th in EPA per rush. So Michigan State's defense has been a little bit better run against pass, but teams are still passing more than rushing against them. Nebraska's going to line up and say, hey, we're just going to lean on you. We're going to Service Academy this. They have their identity. Matt Rule wants to pound the rock. Michigan State on offense, absolute disaster so far this season. 95th in EPA per play, 76th in EPA per rush, and they're rushing 1 percentage point more than average, but Nebraska's defense is 3rd in rushing EPA allowed. Don't overthink this. Bet on good teams. Nebraska 3-point favorite at Michigan State. You can get that a lot of places.
This one is speaking to me both this weekend and in the long run. What Matt Rule has very quickly done is build their trenches. And that's the kind of rebuild you need at a school like this. It's something that, a certain school a little bit further west than Nebraska is quickly realizing you got to do it the right way. And Matt Rule has done that in a way that is going to be sustained. Did you just question my geography there?
I questioned my geography. I was trying to figure out, you said west, and I thought that was an Iowa jab. Just I was prepared for that to be an Iowa jab.
Nope.
And so I was like, wait a minute, I'm pretty sure they're east. And then I realized what you were saying, and I'm there following along. I just had to look at the map in my head.
It was a Dion jab. if I'm going to point out a Colorado weakness, is that they have no offensive line, is why Shedeur Sanders is so beat up. Nebraska has just decided to outmuscle people, which is a bold strategy in the Big Ten West, and that's why it isn't running away with the division. It's in a 4-way tie. But Michigan State is a lackluster Big Ten East team, and muscling people like that is going to work very well.
Absolutely. Where are you going?
I will stick with a trenches thought. I have said a few times this year, and it's just a thought of mine that I'm buying in on more and more, that sacks are the equivalent of a portion of a turnover. Turnovers kill drives and change field position, and they do it very dramatically. Sacks kill most drives and lose yards, therefore affecting field position. Not as drastically, but they do the same things as turnovers to a lesser extent. You know who gives up a lot of sacks? Wake Forest ranks 131st in the country by giving up 4.6 sacks per game. They rank 133rd in the country by giving up nearly 9 tackles for loss per game. Wake Forest's offensive line has never been good. Sam Hartman was just extremely talented under pressure, and now this is coming home to roost. Duke has a very good defensive line. It's one of the more underrated defensive lines in the country. I think Duke is going to knock Wake Forest off schedule the entire game, and that's why I'm getting Duke at less than 2 touchdowns. I will take Duke as a 12.5-point favorite, and I will enjoy that. This one's pretty widely available. I believe it's available everywhere, quite frankly. I don't want the total. You could hear everything I just said and say, oh, it's going to be an under game. But if Duke knocks Wake Forest to this far off schedule, it could lead to short fields for the struggling Blue Devils offense to get right. So I'm just taking that Duke 12.5, and I'm going to enjoy that. It's all about Wake Forest's lackluster offensive line.
Mitch Griffiths has 26 sacks. That's 7th in the nation, has given up 26 sacks. But he has only been pressured 76 times. That's not
to
good.
be fair, it won't. I doubt Griffiths is the starter. Maybe I haven't checked in on Wake Forest on that respect. It doesn't matter.
Only in your favor if that happens. But
yes.
Yeah, I think that's it. I do see. I want to go before my next play really quickly. William Bentley in the comments has a good comment about LSU's defense has looked better against weak opposition. I think that's 100% true. I think that Alabama is going to potentially be able to lean on LSU a little bit more. That's kind of what I was saying a little bit about, kind of navying this thing up is I think because Alabama will be able to run a lot of plays successfully against LSU, they'll be able to string together a lot of drives and kind of slow this thing down. So William, thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. I totally agree with you there. I think that's a smart point. Douglas, we each have one more play here. Speaking of the SEC, let's go ahead and talk about a game that absolutely it terrifies me as someone who is just very fond of Missouri this year. I'm going to go ahead and bet against Missouri going to Georgia this weekend. Georgia's a 15.5-point favorite, minus 108 at DraftKings. Not only do some numbers scare me, but first, Douglas, the way that Kirby Smart and his players have been talking about Missouri, about how they're really good players and they're a really good team. You remember last year, Missouri and Georgia struggled with Missouri a little bit. I don't think that's going to happen again. I think they're locked in. I think they would absolutely like to put up a bunch of points here. I think they're cooking. Last week we saw against Florida some proof of concept of what this offense looks like without Carson Beck. Ladd McConkey just running over people. Missouri's defense is 54th in the nation in EPA per play. And while the passing is very, very good for Missouri, 14th in EPA per play overall, Georgia's defense 16th in EPA per play. Missouri can't run the ball. 56th in EPA per rush, even though Georgia's defense is 44th in EPA per rush. I don't think Missouri's rushing attack is going to be able to give them a long enough leash. Georgia's going to put a lot of pressure on Brady Cook, make him escape the pocket, make him make multiple reads. I could see this spiraling out of control. I'm going to bet the big favorite here. I don't normally love betting these big spreads and taking the team like this, but I'm going to take Georgia here to cover big and a statement win on the back of some of those mismatched stats and just the way that Kirby Smart and his team are talking about, kind of in a bless your heart way about the Missouri Tigers.
I will point out that Missouri is one of your 2 win totals that is already home. You got that at over 6. Missouri is 7-1. You're sitting great there, and that's why you are more comfortable thinking, they might get routed this weekend. I can't argue any of your points there. I'm not about to bet against Georgia at any time soon. I will point out this spread opened at 17 this weekend and came down very quickly. If there's any reason to hesitate, it's that, but it didn't. It's not like it crossed 16 as far as key numbers go. That's hardly a big move, but the only note I would add there.
Yeah. And important to watch that throughout the week. Again, we're betting against time and books, not just shopping at different books, but shopping across time. And right now we're giving you, what we think in this moment of time, but I think certainly important to watch the rest of the week. I would love for it to keep falling. I think that'd be great.
I will close us out with a game where, again, I'm going back to this one paid off last week. And I'm not, I want to take the Arizona money line, 2-point dog. I want to, but I can't quite do it because UCLA's defense is that stinking good. UCLA's defense ranks number 1 in EPA, ranks number 8 in scoring in defense, ranks number 7 in yards per play, ranks number 6 in red zone touchdown percentage. Every way you want to talk about UCLA's defense, it deserves praise. But here's the thing. Arizona's defense deserves that praise right now, too. It is improving that quickly. If you look 2 games ago, before they played Washington State, your numbers, adjusted EPA defense, had Arizona at number 35 in the country. Right now, number 16. That is how quickly it has proven that on the field. The last 2 weeks have shown me enough in Arizona's defense to believe in this number, especially because they're going against, if I may say, a bad UCLA offense, if a struggling UCLA offense. It's switched quarterbacks, and Ethan Garbers has the lower ceiling on Dante Moore. And if you're switching quarterbacks to a lower ceiling, it's because you just need any version of competence. I will take the under 51.5 on this. Available at Neg 110 at FanDuel and MGM. And I will do it because I believe in Arizona's defense, and UCLA's defense might be the best in the country. If it's not the best, it's one of the best 5. Those two together is going to make this a fourth quarter scrum. And I'm hoping Arizona wins because Arizona is my fun team right now. It's a lot of fun to watch them put this together on the fly, but I can't get behind that because UCLA just might give up 6 total yards in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, they can absolutely turn the screws on and clamp down. I like that a whole lot. 51 feels, for a Pac-12 game, just feels inherently a little bit nerve-wracking. But generally, I think I think I understand the logic and I like the process.
And to be clear, because I shopped, and because I went to FanDuel and BetMGM, I'm getting 51.5, not 51.
Oh, nice.
And that is a little bit of a number there as you get some field goals cooking. But you mentioned that feels low in the Pac-12. I'm going to go and point out, I believe it was, let me scroll up in our comments here, Trevor Vandenbosch Jones there pointing out the Washington USC line makes him feel uncomfortable, feels like it reeks. That total of 76 tells me all I need to know. Washington is favored by 3.5 as you shop around. 76 is telling me that, yeah, USC's defense is USC's defense. Washington, you've struggled the last few weeks. Just go hang a number. Go hang a number, Huskies.
Just put up points. Yeah. Silence all the doubters. It's a bad defense, but it's USC, so you get more credit for beating them big. Go. Don't stop. Don't take your foot off the gas. I mean, it is Washington. Another example, like Oklahoma over Texas. I had Oregon power rated ahead of Washington before the game, and had them power rated ahead of Washington after the game. They played each other, and Washington certainly backed that up. Would be a nice spot for Washington to just take care of business against a bad defense there. Douglas, anything else we need to get to before we recap our best bets?
Not that it's coming to mind, aside from reminding folks that we are here as part of the Hammer Betting Network. We are here on the Hit the Books HQ channel. Like, subscribe. You will be blessed with, cursed with, however you want to look at it, some Brad Powers and Joey Knish material twice a week. For the most part, it's worthwhile. I'm supposed to throw those jabs in as I direct people that way, right? That's the proper way to handle that.
I think totally fine. Make sure you subscribe there, and again, like the video on your way out. That helps us out a little bit. Douglas, let's recap our best bets, and then let's get the heck out of here. Who are you going with this week?
I am cooking with 2 favorites and an under. The 2 favorites are Central Florida by 3.5 at Cincinnati. Central Florida, it's time to snap this losing streak, redeem my mistake last week. Taking Duke by 12.5 against Wake Forest. If I could get an over-under prop on number of Duke sacks in this game, I would take the over no matter the number, and that is why I am backing the Blue Devils just shy of 2 touchdowns. And I'm taking UCLA at Arizona under 51.5. It's available at FanDuel, and that number is key because this game is going to become a fourth quarter grind. Both these UCLA's defense is unimpeachable, and Arizona's defense is improving quickly.
Love that process there. Go ahead and grab Buffalo plus 15 versus Toledo tonight. Buffalo, hold on. I want to be clear. I think I may have misspoke earlier. That's Buffalo plus 15.5 tonight. That's the first one I'm going on.
That graphic had a mistake. Buffalo was the dog. Buffalo was the dog against Toledo.
Yes.
There we go.
I do not want that Buffalo. I don't want Buffalo as a 15-point favorite ever. Jared Patterson's not walking through that door. And then I'm going to take Nebraska -3 on the road against Michigan -110. You can get that most places. And then Georgia -15 versus Missouri. You can get that -108, I believe, at DraftKings there as well. 15.5. Yep. Being very precise, throwing it up there on the graphics. This has been Never Punt, Never Parlay. I'm your host, Parker Fleming. For my co-host, Douglas Farmer. We'll see you next time.
Bye, Brian.